Why don't you go ahead and welcome our seniors that went up to the stage as they're going to come on up. They wanted to watch the slideshow, so here they come. I also had to point out, because they're not coming up to the stage, where is Senora and Coach Krebs and Miss Beck? Everybody give them a round of applause. Those guys were awesome. As you saw pictures of them in there. And so we're going to be welcoming up a few at a time up to the stage to join me. They're all coming up. But we're going to get like everything. You saw a bunch of pictures on there, and you probably have questions about what we were doing. And we're going to try to hit every last thing and as quickly as we can today. So first thing we're going to do is talk about things you all want to know. What in the world did you guys eat? All right, we're going to start pretty light today. What did you eat while you were there? And so we got a couple seniors at a time that are going to come up. We have Brooke and Carter and Henry. You're going to join me up here. You guys have mics behind me. Welcome those three up. We're going to talk a little bit about the basics of what we ate because everybody wants to know, what was the food like? What was the food like? So mic check. 1, 2. He's on. Let's go, Carter. You want to sing some Willy Wonka for us? Okay, come to Willy Wonka in a few weeks. It's going to be awesome. So a couple of food things right off the bat. We got some slides up here. We got to do some fun things like go to a volcano restaurant. We got to go to like the nicest McDonald's in the world. You got a slide of that McDonald's? I can't remember. Yeah, some of the, like, that does not look like my McDonald's, y'all, just so you know. And then we also got to eat a lot from Mana's kitchen staff. And so I really don't know what these three are going to talk about. But like, Henry, dude, putting you on the spot. Kick us off. What was the most interesting thing you ate, or what do you remember most about the food?
There was a time we went to one of the malls, and me and Jesse got pasta, and there was obviously like a language barrier between like the person like taking our order.
Wait, there wasn't a language barrier. Didn't you take Spanish here at MVCA?
I forgot a lot. I forgot.
So all of you in Spanish class right now, take it seriously. There's no telling what you're going to get to eat. All right, sorry, that was free. That was for Senora.
So the lady that was there, she was super nice, and when we sat down, she brought us our food, and there was a note in our food saying, "Thank you for coming to Guatemala," which was super nice. In English.
In English, so you could read it. All right, so thank you for coming to Guatemala. That's awesome. Brooke, what about you?
I think the ladies at the house who made us breakfast and dinner each night and morning were really nice, and all the food was like really fresh, and it was really good.
So you mean like really fresh, like the tomatoes tasted fresh, like the vegetables tasted fresh? All right, I got you. It's not like processed food. If you don't know what processed, well, we're not going to talk about processed food today, but it was. Like, I'm not a huge pizza guy, but man, we ate one night at this brick oven pizza place, and I don't ever put veggies on my pizza. Why would you want to do that? But I did there, and it was really good. Carter, what about you, dude?
Hold up. I'd probably agree with the pizza place saying I'm not a person that usually puts ham and pineapple on my pizza. I don't really do that, but pineapple there was insane to say the least. So it was really good.
Any thoughts on the volcano? I know you didn't get to go to the volcano. By the way, I got to point out real quick, Henry played in Dayton on a basketball game. I coached that game. And then we hopped on a plane like 7 hours later with Hearn, wherever he's at. And so he missed some of the restaurants like the volcano restaurant. Any comments? Like, what was the volcano restaurant like? Carter, can you speak to that at all? No, you can't. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it in between?
The food there was amazing.
I think we have a picture of that maybe. Hey, do we have a picture of go back one? Yeah, it's there on the right. That's the volcano restaurant. Why do we call it a volcano restaurant?
Because it's like the view, like from where you sit, you see like 3 volcanoes in the distance.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty awesome. Any other takeaway? Overall, thumbs up, down, or in between on the food? What are we thinking? 3 thumbs up. All right, you guys are awesome. That wasn't hard. Like, come on. They were all nervous about coming up here to talk about stuff. Next one, our other fun thing that we got to do one day was go zip lining. Okay, so here's some pics zip lining. We're going to invite up here. I think Ibby and Jacob are the ones going to talk about zip lining with us. Welcome them up here. I could invite Mrs. Beck up here, but I'm not mean. Mrs. Beck was a little nervous at the first of it, but she did it, and she's a trooper. But zip line, I didn't get to do this because of the basketball thing. I'm a little scared of heights, so I don't know if I'd have done this or not. I probably would have done it. I probably would have done it. But just as a whole, like, what are your first thoughts? Actually, let's show the video first. We got a video? I don't know if you can see all this because it was shot this way. Oh, hold on. Somebody's coming. I don't even know who it is. They're flying. They did the Superman. And I don't know if you can see everything, but all I saw was the tops of trees and then people flying over them, which is kind of high, I guess, in my opinion. All right, so what is your first takeaway on ziplining?
Well, it was really cool. It was nice because they kind of ease you into it. So like the first jump isn't awful, but then it builds up to like that 2,000 fly across the two mountains, which is really cool.
Say what? 2,000 what?
2,000 feet across
Above
the two mountains.
Across mountains. Okay.
And you can lay down while you're doing it, so like looking over everything. It was really cool.
So you can like I heard it was like Superman, right? You could like put your arms out. Did you do Superman?
Yeah,
Did you feel like Superman?
I did.
That's
It was pretty cool.
all right. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the Superman was definitely the best part at the end, but the worst part was in the middle when we had to climb up
You don't want to tell about the worst part. Oh, just go ahead. Go ahead.
there was a 50-foot tall straight up ladder that we had to climb up that nobody warned us about. So we're all standing at the bottom of it looking up. No one wants to do it. It was horrible, but overall I recommend it.
You were attached still, right?
We were attached,
You
but it was
weren't gonna
still scary, okay? It was intimidating.
I got you. I can't speak. I didn't do it. So I think that's where Mrs. Beck was a little intimidated too. So my question is, would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, we went to Guatemala to serve people, but we also went to just experience the wonder of God's creation. So what better way to do that than zipping from mountaintop to mountaintop? I mean,
Not something you get to do every day, that is for sure. All right, you guys, thank you so much. I think Ibby's hanging with us. You are hanging with us. All right, but we are going to get a little bit more into like, okay, so this wasn't all fun and games. It wasn't just McDonald's that was beautiful and volcano restaurants, although those were amazing, and ziplining. The reason we went is to serve. In fact, I have a verse here, Matthew 25, 35, and 36. This is also on your service hours that you guys are supposed to be doing. If you've ever read that document, anybody doing service hours in here? A few of you. All right, thanks. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And if you skip ahead to verse 40 of the same chapter of Matthew 25, the king will reply, truly I say to you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters, you have done to me. And so as we talk about poverty, I want to go ahead and invite a couple other people back up to Scott, if you'll come up, man, and Clay Heap, if you guys will come up too. There was a ton of poverty that we saw there. In fact, when I flew in with Hearn and Henry, and as we flew in a couple days after everybody else got there, as soon as we were landing in the plane, if you've ever been in a plane and you start to look below and you can start to see the ground and what's on the ground, it just struck me. Like I was like, wow, because you see thousands and thousands of houses, but a lot of these houses don't have complete walls. Like they're tin walls. The roof's not all the way there. It could be made out of wood. It's nothing like you've seen before. And I don't want to steal all of their thunder, because I think I just did. But just some of the stuff that you saw is just eye-opening. And so there's a lot of need. There's spiritual need and there's physical need. And we're going to talk a little bit about the physical need that we saw. We're going to give Ibby a break because she just talked. Scott, man, what was your first takeaways when you encountered any of this stuff?
I mean, it's the first thing you notice entirely. I mean, you look down, even from the airplane, you see just all the houses built out of metal, concrete literally everywhere. There's like no wood houses, which is crazy because over here, every house is made out of wood. And it's just one of the first things you notice, and it hits you hard because it's like they don't get a comfortable space to live in. It's completely different. Even in the houses we were building stoves in, like you can see in the picture there. That's not what it's.
The one on the left is actually one of the houses we built a stove in. Yes.
Yeah.
So
that one's just built. There's like holes in the wall. There's no like. I bet if it rains, you probably get a lot of rain in there. Like there's nothing comfortable about it. And that's what they have to live in every day.
100%. That's what struck me too. Clay, what about you, man?
What stuck out to me the most was like all the little kids that just had to walk a couple miles to get anything to eat. Like there'd be like a 6-year-old walking like his 2-year-old sibling down like a couple miles from home to a feeding center just to get a cup of rice. So that obviously is pretty sad to see.
Ibby?
Yeah, so about $1 in Guatemalan currency is only about 13 cents in our currency. And so if you're getting like $100 a week in Guatemala, that's considered doing really good. Just to put that in perspective, that's about like 10 hours of working at minimum wage in Ohio. And so these kids, when they leave school in the second or third grade, they don't really have an opportunity to get like higher paying jobs. And so they really struggle financially. But regardless of all of that, they're still extremely grateful and thankful for everything they have. When we were doing these home visits, we were welcomed in with open arms. And when the kids are getting their one meal a day, they're still willing to share it with their friends. And when we went to church on Sunday, the families still found money to tithe. So I thought that was really encouraging to see.
This is a personal question. Didn't tell you I was going to ask it, but like when you saw all of what they had, did it give you a greater appreciation for what you're blessed with back here?
I would say definitely. I think I take a lot of it for granted. And so, like, moving forward, coming back to America, I'm going to try and be really intentionally thankful and, like, express it more out loud.
Same.
Yeah,
I agree.
Thanks, Clay, man. A few words. All right, you guys, thank you so much. We're going to invite up, give them a round of applause. I'm telling you guys, they were all nervous about doing this. So they're doing great so far. Nate, come on, man, and Jacob and Lauren and Josie. We're going to talk about these feeding centers that you're seeing on the screen. So what did you guys actually do while you were there to like serve? Clay started to mention it, but these kids a lot of times had to walk a long way just to get a meal. And so why would they do it? It was oftentimes because it was the only meal they were going to eat in a day. Like the only one. And so, are we out of chairs? Like, you sit down, dude. I don't feel awful. Come on, man. And so, in these feeding centers, we went to several. And I'll let them describe what we did, but in essence, it's what it sounds like. We fed children that wouldn't have another meal that day. And so they got 4 of you up here. Lauren, tell me your experience with the feeding centers. What stuck out to you? What was kind of your takeaway from it?
What stuck out to me the most was, like Clay mentioned earlier, like siblings had to walk their younger siblings like miles just to get some food. And there was this one family specifically, there was a girl who was 10 and then she had 3 siblings. She had a 6-year-old sister, a 4-year-old sister, and then a 2-year-old brother. And she was holding her little brother on her lap and like didn't have a chair for him. So we got him a chair and like got his food for him and everything. But he wasn't eating. So I kind of asked the sister, like, why isn't he eating? And she said that he's been sick. So I tried to hand feed him his meal and he ended up eating like all of his meal, which was great. But it was just so sad to see that she was going to have to feed him and take time away from taking care of herself to have to take care of her little brother. So it was just kind of sad that they don't really have parents around that can take care of their siblings. They just have to do it themselves. So that's what really stuck out to me.
Now, on a side note, like this is another part of the sadness, how many dads did you see around?
I didn't see any.
I didn't see any either. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but a lot of times these siblings, as you're saying, are kind of looking out for themselves, or it's all on the responsibility of the mom, 100%. But even so, a lot of times we saw siblings, older ones, bringing in their younger ones to these places. What about you, Josie?
I think one of the main things that stuck out to me was like these kids are coming and this is probably like the only meal that they're getting at the most. So I feel like we definitely could take for granted like all of the 3 meals a day that we get. But yeah, just being there, but also not only being able to serve them, but like being able to interact with them and just sit down and love on them. Like that's all they need, and the power of like human touch and just being able to sit there and like experience that with them.
Yeah, so they would come and eat, and then oftentimes I saw a lot of the girls hanging out with the girls, and y'all were doing like, what were y'all doing? Like y'all were doing stuff like with hair, and I don't even know what that stuff's called. Like, so they come and eat. Girls have longer hair than me, obviously, but what would we do after the meal was over? A lot of times,
we definitely would like hang out a lot, or just like the language barrier like did not seem to be there. Like we would just like play and laugh and like tickling them and just like picking them up was so fun. But yes, braiding hair we kind of came along to do a lot like after meals and stuff.
Yeah, so even though I'm encouraging you to make sure you pay attention in Spanish class, we did find that a smile and playing and laughing is a universal language. So even though there was some language barriers there, man, that was part of it. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing was, it was kind of already said, but with like the lack of father figures there and the lack of like love from their parents, a lot of times the kids at the feeding centers were just really into like physical touch because they didn't get that a lot. So all it took was us just going up to them and like picking them up, as you saw in the video, like Clay throwing the kid up in the air, like, or like having kids on our backs and stuff like that. They just instantly were like connected to us from that, and it didn't even matter what language they spoke. It was just showing physical love to them, and they just instantly like were so grateful for that.
What can you add?
Yeah, the language barrier, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but it was really cool to see how, like, they don't speak a word of English. I can say, por favor, burrito, and that's about it. And then, but you can make such a real connection with the kids by just talking to them and, like, through, like, they'll just, like, guide you over to what they want to do. And you can make such a real connection by just, like, touching them and tickling them. And it was just so nice to see all these kids, because they're some of, like, the most grateful and happy kids you could ever see, even though they don't have much.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We're going to move on. Yeah, give them a round of applause too. We're moving on to probably for me, again, I was only there 3 days because of the basketball thing, but for me, the most impactful day was the day that we got to go to this place called El Dorado. And at this place, we did some things that by first look, you would be like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Feet washing, which I'm going to let them talk about. But as we got to go there, and I went out of order. Y'all don't have the order, it's fine. But I want to go ahead and bring up Jack Durand, come on, and Jesse, Katie, and Kaylee. Let's go, guys. Yeah. Are we all here? Y'all can take my seat again. That's fine. So if you can skip the home visits and go ahead to the next one. I did jump. There you go. We did feet washing and lice treatment. And I just want you to know, by definition, the first response would be like, nah, I'm good. I'm not doing that. All right. I'm not washing these feet. And I want you to understand, like, this is in a lot of instances like Jesus times when Jesus washed his 12 disciples' feet. There was a lot of dust and dirt around. Did y'all see a lot of dust and dirt around here? This is kind of what we were encountering, with some in some cases some pretty nasty, dirty feet. And so I just want you to know, like, every single one of these people up here, like, they were excited to do it. They were like waiting in line and say, hey, it's my turn. And so it's amazing what God was able to do in their heart. I don't want to spoil it all. And so I'll let them talk. I probably already did again. But just overall, Jack, that day when we got to do feet washing and lice treatment and all of that stuff, what was kind of your takeaway and thoughts?
Yeah, this was definitely the most impactful day for me too. But like just seeing how like excited they were, and it's like just in line waiting, like ready to get washed. Like it's just like you take it for granted. Like you just take showers every day. Like don't even think about it. So I mean that's a big thing. And then afterwards, like playing with them, like you can't really like talk to them, but like just seeing them like chasing you around and everything like that, it's really cool.
Jesse, what would you add to it?
So there was a few, the main thing I did was like after we would do their hair, then there was a few girls that they still, after they got their hair braided, they still had a lot of lice in their hair. So they had to go through the whole entire washing process again. And so I took these two girls in specific over, and watching them with like their neck arched over and water just like going on their face and water in their ears, I know that would make me feel like so uncomfortable. And so I decided that I was gonna like hold the girls kind of like a baby, and looking like being eye to eye with those kids and seeing how like feeling how tightly they were holding me, and just like so thankful even though they literally had nothing, was just really crazy to see. And like you just felt a bond with each of these kids, and that was literally nothing else that could have caused that except like God's love, which was crazy because when you like look at those kids, you're like, God, like Jesus died for that kid, like Jesus died for me. And so it was just so cool throughout the trip and throughout that town, like especially just seeing that we were all like brothers and sisters in Christ, and it had no dividing line. Like the speech barrier couldn't stop that. It was just like God's love flowing through like everybody I was there with and all the kids. So that was definitely you think you only go there to help them, but it really does change your heart. So that was definitely an impactful day for me, for sure.
Wow. Kaylee?
Yeah, that was the most eye-opening day, I think, because just something as simple as washing their feet or hair that we just take for granted so much, like the look on their faces and like how much joy it brought to them and the smile.
that look will stay with me forever because it just they were so excited and happy and grateful, and they were some of the most joyful people I've ever met, just from having nothing for our standards, but they had everything in reality.
Katie.
So for me, there was this one little girl. I was braiding her hair after we had washed the lice treatment out of it, and I noticed a lot of nits in her hair and a lot of bugs of lice. And so I was like, "Hey, sweetie, like we're gonna like." I had Senora help translate to like go back and put more treatment in, and then we had her sit for 10 minutes instead of 5 just to make sure like it really got everything and got in her hair and like killed all the lice. And so then we washed her out, and then we had to go back and wash again because all the soap wasn't washed out. And so then when I was rebrushing her hair, I could still see like the live lice still crawling around in her hair. And I was like, Senora, I can't just, like, we're here to help them. Like, I can't just let her keep going with more. So then I had Senora help me translate again, like, hey, we're going to do this one more time, like, just to make sure. And like, just like both the times, like the last 2 times that we had to like rewash her hair, she still just had like the biggest smile on her face, and she just still like wanted to like keep playing, and like she just like had fun. Like she was sitting there with like those little caps that you can see like on their hair. Like she was just sitting there like with the cutest little smile, and she had like her hands on her seat just like kicking her legs back and forth while she was waiting. And then I finally washed her again. We got most of it out, and then I took the lice combs and started picking the nits out and wiping it off and picking them out and wiping them off. And in the middle of that, that was just really like heart moving for me, because as I'm sitting here, like I feel awful for this girl because she has all this lice in her hair that just won't come out, but like she still has like the biggest smile on her face. I just started like crying like while I was like braiding her hair and like whatever, and I was just like, "Are you doing okay?" And she like nodded at me, and that part was just really moving, just because like even though like the pain that she was going through, it like it hurt me too, just like seeing her like so happy and like joyful, because like for us we're like, oh, we're just washing these kids' hair, but for them like it's relief of like itching that they constantly have, and like maybe like bruises on their head and just like sore spots and stuff like that. And then the feet washing was also a really good experience for me, because I am not a feet person by any means. I strongly dislike feet, but it was just very humbling. And it was like by the end, like when I started doing it, I was like, wow, like this isn't as bad. Like face your fears, Katie. So it was really humbling, and it just like it made like me feel better afterward, just because like I know like these kids like feel like, even though we just washed their feet, not their whole bodies, like they still felt like some sort of relief, even though. So that was definitely one of the bigger impacts of the trip for me.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add that I didn't hear about this day is this village too, this city, El Dorado, was an ancient, like they're descendants of the Mayans. And in Guatemala, if you're a Mayan, you're the lowest of the low. Like a lot of them can't even get jobs. Like there's discrimination against Mayans. So a lot of times there's no trust there between like any people between people, because they're always so heavily looked down upon and discriminated against. And so the fact that we were able to do this in at the church there in town with the pastor, just to show God's love, is just a generational trust building piece. And again, as we might consider like in society, like literally there in Guatemala, they're the lowest of the low. The verse that I just read, Jesus said, if you've done this for the least of these brothers and sisters, man, you've done it for me. And so I think that's where the love of God just all of a sudden just came out of us. Even they're like, hey, who wants to wash feet? I don't know that we'd be eager to do that right here today if you took your shoes off. But like there, it was just like natural. It was just like God's love moved in this universal language of, I love what Jesse said, of God's spirit moving. It erased all boundaries of language or anything like that. So anyways, thank you guys. That's awesome. Give them a round of applause. That's amazing. We're going to talk about home visits. So we would do these feeding centers, and then we would get a chance to go with the local pastor to go deliver food. Again, food is something we take so much for granted, but there, man, it was very impactful. So for these home visits, let's bring up Braden Rotello and Katie. Again, sorry, Katie, come right back up. Sophie Trevino and Josie, come on up. All right, we're going to jump right in. So I kind of described what home visits are and what they were. Let's start with Sophie, because we see a picture of you holding a baby on the screen. So what was memorable for you about home visits?
So that specific home visit that we were at was probably like the most impactful part of the trip for me. It was this family, and there was about 10 kids there, maybe more or less, I'm not sure. But there was like this mom and then her two daughters, and then they had all of their kids and everything. And when we went there were no dads or husbands or anything. They were all at work, so they all were married and like they're okay, but they were at work. And so we were just talking to them about the gospel, and there was a translator, a pastor there, who he was able to, we would tell them like what we felt God was telling us on our hearts, and then he would translate for us. And just like as we were telling them and telling the family about Jesus, there was this little boy who was 10 years old, and he was just like so in awe of the story we were telling and about Jesus and the prodigal son and just about the gospel. And it just like really impacted me. It was just like, we need to have that childlike faith. We need to be able to just like be so eager to learn and so eager to just want to know the gospel. And it's like he had never heard it, he had never experienced that, and he just like wanted to hear. So it just like was really encouraging to see that. And then we also just, as we were praying, like they were praying in Spanish, so I had no idea what they were saying, but I just was able to like pray over them in my head, and I was just like praying that the Holy Spirit would just move in them. And then they were all brought to tears, like they were actually just like crying, and like you could feel the Holy Spirit in that place. So it was really cool. And then also I loved kids so much, and I got to hold a 2-month-old baby, which was the best thing ever. But yeah, it was great. So that was my takeaway.
Awesome. Josie?
The biggest thing about the home visits that hit me was like the family dynamic. So as many people have already mentioned, like the dads are not really in the home. And as the guy who's leading our trip, Rich Bennett, told us, there's like 3 situations where the dad is not at home. It's either the dad is working all the time, so they're not really, they have a family and they love that family, but they're not able to be with the family as much as they could be able to. Or like we saw in one home visit, like the dad was abusive and the mom found a way to leave that situation, thank God. And another one is like alcoholicism, a lot of alcoholic men there, and you just see men like walking across the street and they have families, they have people that they should be taking care of, but they're not. So it hit me like when we went to the first home that we went to on our first full day there, was at this mom. She has 3 kids. It was no, it was like 4 kids. It was 3 boys, and I think there was like 1 or 2 girls. And she just talked about how like she's really struggling to raise her kids because she not only does she have to work, she has to figure out a way to keep her kids out of the streets and out of the influences that are like all around them and the poverty that they're living in. And just what hit me is like the way these people fight for their families, right? Like our parents would do the same for us, but the way you see it, they're dealing with circumstances that we couldn't imagine, the poverty, the like situations around them, everything going on, and they really really fight for their families and the love that they have for one another. And that just like, I don't know, really made me appreciate my family, and I'm sure everybody else really did too, seeing all of that. Yeah.
Braden?
Yeah, so kind of going off of what Josie was saying about like the importance of family, during that second home visit where it was the big family with the 3 women, the 3 mothers, I was just moved to share a testimony with them, just like about how God wanted to accept them into His family, that He'd always be there for them, He'd never abandon them, and so that was just how God moved through me to like share the gospel with them. Because I noticed that family was really important to them. And so that was just a huge blessing for them and for me to be able to share that with them. But another thing, just with the home visits, was just not only were we able to share the gospel with them, we were able to give them food and give them supplies. And while those might not last forever, they were very grateful and very thankful for those. And I was just struck by how open and friendly they were to us, letting us in their homes, letting us actually like crowd around, huddle together in their tiny homes, and just like they were very receptive, very grateful. So that was just so moving. And one of the families we visited in El Dorado, they had this little boy who had like this mouth infection. So we were able to pray for him and pray over him, and that was just really moving. And they just didn't have any way to treat it, so we were able to just give that to God.
I love it. And what he was saying, he did speak about how we had several of our students, in fact 6, got to share a little bit about their faith and their trust in the Lord, and it was so cool. We have videos of it, so you'll have to see it sometime. We'll post them somewhere. I don't know where we'll post them, but literally Braden was awesome. Like he would speak, and 5 others did too. They would speak, and then they would be translated into Spanish, and then Braden would speak, and then it was translated into Spanish, and then it's 6 different of our teenagers out of the 22 that went, that shared their faith and their belief in God with people on the other side of the planet that they didn't even know about before last week. And so you guys encourage me by your willingness to speak out and share your faith with people you'd never met, which was really cool. Katie, what can you add to the home visits?
So 2 of the homes that we visited, the first one was this lady named Patty. She's the one with the 4 kids, and she was just very like welcoming into our home. And it took us a few knocks to be able to for her to hear us and let us in. But the reason she was so timid to like coming to the gate right away, I don't want to say door because they don't really have doors there. But the reason she was so timid to coming to the door was because she thought it was her husband, her ex-husband, who had found her and was like trying to break in and like whatever. She had left him. I want to say she said 2 or 3 years prior to when we had gotten there. She had left him. It was a very abusive home. It was, and she left so that she could take care of her kids and make a better life for her and her kids. Outside of him, he was an alcoholic, and so it just wasn't an all-around good situation. And she just kept telling us how she prays daily to be able to make a better future for her kids, and how she feels like she lets them down sometimes. And so it just kind of like hit me, just because my mom's always been the kind of mom to like always put her kids first and like her family first. And my mom's name is Patty, so it just kind of like correlated a little bit for me in my head. So it just really hit home for me on that first visit, just because I take for granted a lot of times like what my mom and like my family does for me and stuff like that. So it's just really impactful to see how she like has absolutely nothing, and like just the poverty that she was living in, and like the like dirty clothes that she's washing with the dirty stream water, but like they still think like that's so clean to them. Like that just really like made me feel like more grateful for what I do have like here at home, and like grateful for the family that I have surrounding me. And then one of the last visits when we were in El Dorado was when we took some food. We had to go down this long hill and then up hills, and there is dog poop on the road, and then there is like this dirty stream of water. And I don't know if I sent in the picture or not, but it was just like this super long dirty stream of water going down the hill. And I was thinking about it. I was like, that's like what these people like use to like eat, drink, bathe, like cook and stuff like that. And so like we just take for granted like the like fresh water. Like we don't really have to think about like if you use the faucet to boil water for spaghetti or something like that, like you don't have to think about like if it's going to be contaminated or if you're going to get sick. And then that was the same home visit as Braden mentioned with the kid with the mouth disease, and that was also in the Mayan like poor low city. And so the organization we were with, they have a clinic down there that wants to help people with diseases and are sick and like dental care, but because they don't really trust anyone there, they don't take the kids there. And so this little boy, like we were just praying over the mom because she just said like how she didn't want to take him there. And so we were just praying over him. And then there was a little baby that I got to hold. I don't know if we have that picture either, but he was like, this little baby was just so cute. And as I was holding him, one of the kids, I can't remember how many kids were in there, but one of the older girls, she came up and like was like asking for him. I was like, oh yeah, like of course, like give your brother back to you. And she was probably 8 maybe, and she was the one like changing the diapers, and like the mom was there, like we were talking to her and stuff like that. But that also showed like how much of like a role like older siblings play in a lot of these Guatemalan families, is like they act as if the mom or the dad and stuff like that. And then as soon as she was done, he started crying, and she kind of like lifted him to me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll take the crying baby. And then he stopped crying, which was pretty nice. But it was just really impactful going to the home visits, because it just like we have our houses, like whether it's 1 story, 2 story, whatever we have, like we take that for granted. Whereas these people in these homes that they're living in have like 10 rigid like walls and roofs. And like one of the ladies was telling us how like when it rains, like their beds get wet, and like they just like get rained on while they sleep, and like they're just used to it so much now because that's what they've like lived in for so long. So it's just like really impactful, and like it just shows like what we here in America like take for granted. And so yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys can have a seat. We have one more. Yeah, give him a round of applause. We have Sam Dorhout, aka Bob the Builder. Can you build it? Yes, you can. So put up the stoves real quick. We are almost wrapped up here, guys. But we also got to put in some stoves. Thank you, MVCA. We had a lot of donations. A stove would cost about $300, which would be about 1 year of their salary. $300 for a year is about what they made. So they were not able to obviously provide this for themselves, but Sam was a part of putting every single one of the stoves in that we did. Dude, have you ever in your life thought you were going to be a stove builder?
Honestly, no. I didn't really even know like you could build a stove like that.
Are you a handyman?
I guess I am now.
I guess you are now. I guess you are now. Okay, so what was the process like?
So they're like not really anything like our stoves, as you can probably see. They're like made out of like these concrete bricks that are just shaped different ways, and we just like had to load them up in the back of a truck, and we kind of had to like drive that in the middle of nowhere, and then we just helped unload all that, and we had to like build them up. But like we had like in some of the homes like their grounds weren't even flat, so we had to like break away the dirt and stuff so we could even set it on a flat surface. That's really important because like if the kids touch it, they could like burn themselves really badly. And it was like kind of self-explanatory, but we had to like follow the instructions and stuff. In the last house though, it was really bad. I don't know if we have a picture of it, but there was a hill that we had to carry like all these really heavy pieces up, and it kind of sucked, honestly.
You got a good workout that day, man.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So I can see you intently looking at the instructions on the second picture over there. Just as a whole, like, how long did it take to put them in?
I don't know, maybe like 45 minutes.
Once you got the hang of it, like you
Yeah.
were the only one that was a part of every group. I actually sent you with the last group because you know the expertise that you now have. You should put it on your resume, by the way, stove builder. What do you think it meant to the families? Can you tell? I know you couldn't speak the language, but as you know, kind of saw them as it was going on, like, could you get a vibe at all from that?
Most of the families kind of like sat back and just like watched us, but you could like tell they were happy. Like every time like you turn around, they just be like standing there in the doorway, just like looking and smiling at us.
Yeah, I actually watched us leave the first place, and as soon as we like exited the room, like 4 women all went in there, like we're like touching it like it was a new car and stuff like that. They were really excited. So again, I don't know if we can even fathom because again, like stove wise, we have one in our house. Obviously, it didn't look like that, but man, they use it for cooking. They also use it for like warming up, and then like the first one place we were in, like the whole room was black because why? You mean previously, how were they cooking their food?
They just had like a giant fire in there, but that like fills everything with smoke. So like a lot of the kids and stuff that had like bad lungs because it's just like constant smoke everywhere.
So by putting these stoves in, we weren't just making like cooking easier. We were allowing generational change, hopefully like in maybe even lung cancer, breathing in that smoke. And we also I don't know if we can see it, but we ventilated it out. We sent the smoke out through a pipe through the roof. So would you say it was like one of your favorite parts in between? Like I think you liked them. You wanted to go back and do it again, right?
Yeah, it was really fun just like kind of see how thankful they were and like be able to know like you physically made that difference.
Yeah.
And you don't know like who that's all gonna impact because like that can stand there for a while and they could help other families too. So it's really cool to see.
Well, thank you, Sam. Oh, all right, we're down to our last group of people. Yeah, give him a round of applause. This is it, guys. Y'all been a great audience. I hope it's been interesting. But I want to invite a couple more people. This is our last group, and then we'll be out of here today. Sophie Trevino, come back up. Carter, Aaliyah, and Ethan. It's really just parting shots. When I asked these students, when I asked our students overall, like, hey, who wants to like just give one last big takeaway? This is what I learned. This is what God did in my life. These are the first 4 that volunteered. I think there would have been more, but they literally shot their hands up so fast that here they sit. So real quickly, again, I told you all in Guatemala, in a minute or less if you can, guys. But let's see what you got. Let's come up with Hearn. I don't think you've been up and spoken yet. I think and Aaliyah had. We'll go Hearn and then Aaliyah.
I would say the biggest takeaway for me was like you don't have to go on these big like they're good, but you don't have to go on these big mission trips to really serve God. Like Rich told us in the last couple of nights, like he asked us the question, he goes, you guys have gotten to serve God so boldly these past couple of days. And he asked us, he goes, will you go home and do the same thing? Will you serve God the way you served God here? And I took that to heart and I was just like, I need to go home and make sure that I serve God the way I serve God there, like with everything I do and just making sure that I do what God wants me to do.
What I took away from it is like everybody has a past and everybody has history and stuff that we don't know about, and we need to just treat them like our friends. Me, Carter, Ibby, and Olivia Boyd, we hung out with this kid, and he had been through stuff that I will never experience or know what it's like. And we just treated him like a kid, and people came up to us afterwards was like, thank you for treating him like a 15-year-old boy that he is. And that really hit close because in that moment I had forgotten about everything and just saw him as my friend.
Carter.
The biggest takeaway for me was about family. As you've probably heard from other people speaking, a lot of the families don't have the dad present or the siblings are acting as the parents. And that just really hit me hard because you see how like grateful those families are to have their siblings or their mom around them. And I feel like a lot of times we will take our families for granted. And yeah, hold on. And it's just like we don't know always, like the family's there, obviously, don't really know where their next meal is going to come from. But we have like loving parents that are willing to send us to this amazing Christian school to get a Christian education, an amazing education. And a lot of the families there don't have that. And that just, it really hit me really hard. And it kind of like, just tell your families, guys, that like you love them, hang out with them, spend time with them, because we're not always granted another day. Like this could be our last day on earth. So just treat every day like it's going to be your last day with your family.
Sophie.
So, just what I was talking about earlier with the childlike faith and the little boy, that just really impacted me. Just like I need to be eager to learn every day. There's always more to learn about Jesus, there's always more to grow closer in a relationship with him. But then also just through that, seeing his, I don't know if anyone said this, but his, like the three ladies that were there, they all ended up getting saved and they're now Christians, which is amazing. But seeing that, just like the impact that we were able to have, just again, despite the language barrier, was just so amazing and so encouraging. And it just, God has really put on my heart that I feel like I'm supposed to just continue to do like missions and just continue to spread the word. And also what Ethan was saying, Rich Bennett was talking to us about, like, it doesn't have to be in a different country. Like you guys can be just at your church and be a small group leader, or you can just be discipling a younger kid, or you can be at a camp, or he was talking about Camp Chautauqua. I don't know if any of you guys know what that is. It's around here. But you can literally just intern there, and that is doing missions. So I want to encourage the juniors also, like next year, go. Like if you can go on the missions trip. And I just want you to all know, like I'm praying for you guys, that you guys just really are filled with the Holy Spirit and that you are able to lead the school and as your upcoming seniors. And I just really want you all to go, like experience that, because it's life changing and God will work in you and he's going to move in you. So yeah.
Thank you guys. You guys can have a seat too. Why don't we give a round of applause to all the seniors that shared today? Literally everybody on stage shared at least one time. And I got to point out that he's going to hate me for this. It's fine. They've kept talking about this dude named Rich Bennett. It's not our Rich Bennett. The guy that did the golf sermon yesterday. Y'all remember him? That's not him. There's another guy named Rich Bennett. I know everybody's like, wait, Rich Bennett was on this trip too? He actually works for this? No. So Rich Bennett's in the back. If you will stand real fast, Rich. Here he is. This is the other Rich Bennett. Yeah, he's in the very back in the middle. He works for Mano Worldwide, and he was our leader on this trip. And man, I could talk a lot about him. I won't for another day, but he's awesome. But I had to end the confusion because some of you guys were like, wait, by the way, the other Rich Bennett spoke yesterday in chapel. So we were really confused in here today. So anyways, we're going to pray to end today. If you guys would just stand with me as we get ready to leave, I'm going to invite Katie New back up, and she's going to pray us out of here today. Teachers, thank you for your kindness and patience. I know we're a little over today, but I thought, man, it is worth it to hear from the hearts of these kids. So Katie's going to pray us out, and then we'll be dismissed.
So one last thing I wanted to leave with you guys was a quote from one of the pastors that we listened to at church on Sunday, and it says, "Feet that go without words is just a vacation." So I just want to like give that to you guys and just like encourage you, like wherever you go, wherever you're like whatever you're doing, just like think of any small ways like that you can encourage people with like godly words and just encourage and like uplift them in a godly manner so that you are still spreading the gospel everywhere you go. That was one of my key takeaways. So dear Lord, I thank you for today, and I just thank you so much for this awesome experience that I got to share with my senior class this year going to Guatemala. And I'm just thankful that you let us have safe travels and that you kept us safe while we were there the whole time, and just let us be able to open our eyes to the world around us and being able to go into a third world country and just experience the poverty, but not just poverty, but how people are so just so like spiritually hungry as well, Lord. And I just pray that you can help us here in the United States, in Ohio and in Cincy, and just let us be able to continue to spread the gospel. And I just pray for the upcoming classes, and I just pray that you can continue to let this trip continue here at MVCA. And I pray that you can just keep the upcoming classes excited to do this trip and excited to go on it, and have a bond that is created with your class. And I just pray for everyone in here, and I just pray that you can help the upcoming seniors next year that are juniors right now, Lord. And I just pray that you can help move in their hearts, and then the sophomores and the freshmen, Lord. Just let them be able to continue creating a change that this class of seniors has made a big impact on already. And I just pray that you help us all be able to be more like you and walk with words and not just walk with a vacation. In Jesus' name, amen.